Today, we're talking to the CEO of South African Tourism, Mr. Sisa Ntshona, about the state of tourism in South Africa. Hello, Mzansi. My name is Xolani Mthethwa. Let's talk tourism. Talk Tourism is a channel where we discuss anything and everything that is tourism in South Africa. Let's jump in. Mr. Ntshona, thanks for your time. If we can just start maybe by telling us the role of SA tourism. What do you do as South African tourism?
Yeah, hi, Xolani, and thank you very much for having us on board. And congratulations for setting up this platform, which is very much needed about informing and educating people about tourism. So
Thank you.
essentially, South African tourism is a government-owned entity, what you call a DMO, a destination management organization. And our job is essentially twofold: to get as many people traveling to South Africa from outside of the country, international, and also at the same time to get as many South Africans to travel within the country. And I think the key thing here is that tourism is part of our National Development Plan, NDP, and currently contributes about 8% to the GDP. We obviously want to double this over time and make sure that it contributes more to our economy.
Can you just tell us what has been the impact of COVID-19 on tourism in South Africa? And if you have any numbers that you have, statistics that you can maybe drop in, please do that.
Yeah. I think to bring some context, this is a global phenomenon,
Yeah.
right? And travel globally has literally come to a halt.
Yeah.
To give you a bit of a sense, is that the world currently is at levels last seen in 1990, right? So that is 30 years. So where we are at as South Africa at the moment, in terms of numbers, it's very difficult because remember, it's a running tally. You know, the current preliminary numbers that we have is that about 74% of decrease in terms of occupancy rates relative to last year is what we are seeing at the moment. The real risk, though, Polani, is in those businesses that are closing completely off and will never open again because the pandemic has really hit them quite hard. And we are constantly looking all the time to see how best we can support those so that when we are over this hurdle, you want to make sure that there is still a tourism sector to speak of.
Great, great. This thing of COVID-19, obviously, like you say, that it impacted everyone globally. It was not only South Africa. In terms of the tourism recovery plan, that I know that SA Tourism was championing together with the Department of Tourism, what were the focus areas of the tourism recovery plan?
Sure. I think on that one, I'm very happy to announce that the tourism recovery plan was approved now by cabinet last week, which now makes it an official government document and policy. The recovery plan was essentially saying, let's take a view and a look as to how we are going to get the sector back, into areas of growth. We have to be clear that sometimes, the word recovery does not mean going back to ways of old, but essentially to saying, how do we bring back traction into the sector so that jobs are secured and we can grow? Now, the recovery plan is premised just on three legs. First leg is about protecting the supply side. I said earlier on is that whilst businesses are not allowed to operate, we have to make sure that we protect them and essentially that they don't go down. We've seen various elements around this one. This one was around the Tourism Relief Fund that was set up some time back, the guarantee schemes that have been set by government, and any other measures that have been put in place. The second part is what we call reigniting demand, right?
Yeah.
So whilst the world is not traveling, we have to make sure that we are not forgotten as a travel destination. So that when things open up again, it's easy to convert as opposed to have to remind people that South Africa is a destination, please come visit us. Then the last leg is what we call enabling environment. And this is the policy space to make sure, as an example, that we've got the right visa regimes, in place. E-visa is something that is in place. It's easy to get it. We are also looking at, policy side, even on Department of Transport. We have to connect South Africa to the world again. So therefore, airline connectivity is going to become important.
Now, I want us to talk about the opening of the SA borders, mainly for leisure tourism. Are there any predictions? When are we likely to see this?
Yeah, I can tell you with the hand on heart, no one in the world can answer the question for you. If they say they can, they are actually lying. Now, South Africa's policy has been consistent to saying the country is open to anybody that wants to fly to South Africa.
Mm,
The only requirement you need is you need to have a negative PCR test that is not older than 72 hours,
mm.
essentially. That's still the space that we are in. So we have no red list, we have no one banned. We are just saying basically only the people that are negative are allowed to come into the country.
That's good. That's good to hear that, Mr. Ntshona. Now, let's focus on domestic tourism. I know that Short Left has been a platform that has been used, over the years in terms of domestic tourism, where deals are posted to encourage, South Africans to travel within their own country. But over and above the Short Left, what else is SA Tourism doing to stimulate the domestic tourism?
Okay. So a couple of things. The first one is we have also made a shift as South African tourism to really move towards conversion. For a long time, we did a lot of call awareness, so we would really go out with our campaigns and show you beautiful sites of South Africa, but we never completed it by showing you how and where to book in order to get there. So the focus now becomes around conversion, right? So the awareness is great, but the awareness needs to be accompanied by the conversion part. That's the first one. The second one is that adjusting their pricing to actually to be appropriate for the target audience that they have at the moment, and that is domestic. There's no point in charging exorbitant international pricing when there's no one coming in that regard. So we've seen discounts, 50, 60, 70, 80% discounts starting to come through on that side there. Thirdly, as well, is that understanding the changing consumer behavior, right? The traveler's needs and wants is very different from what it was before COVID.
Yeah.
Suddenly now, they want to go to outskirts. They want to go where there is space. They want to go where they're in self-enclosed units or cabins, as an example, or lodges. So therefore, the hotels or the resorts that had like 200 or 300 beds are no longer as popular as the smaller ones now. So suddenly SMEs really come into the fore in terms of getting business. The modes of travel is changing, where we're seeing people not wanting to go on air, but rather road trips are picking up quite nicely as well, where people are traveling in family units where they feel safe amongst each other or in their bubble as elsewhere.
Now, I want us to move to our next two questions, which are last questions. The issue of the We Do Tourism concept. I remember that when it started, there was a lot of hype around it, but it looks like it has sort of like gone down. What's happening there on this We Do Tourism concept?
Yes, I think it's something that will not desert. It was not a campaign, but rather a movement. And a movement about saying that every South African is involved in tourism. Because when people stop traveling, it actually slows down the economy of the country. No one goes to shopping malls. No one does road trips. No one pours petrol. No one hires vehicles and all of those type of things, basically. So the We Do Tourism was really about saying that when tourism does well, we all do well. So that is something definitely that is continuing. We will be dialing it up a bit, quite substantially, and you'll be seeing it essentially in a lot of the transport hubs, airports, taxi ranks, fuel stations, essentially, where that movement is happening. We'll start it up quite substantially.
Mr. Ntshona, my last question is regarding the future of tourism exhibitions. Africa's Travel Indaba, Meetings Africa, and others. What are the plans, or what is the thinking around the nature of these exhibitions?
Sure. So the exhibition space and broadly the MICE space was the hardest hit. They were the one hit first, essentially, and then the one probably will come in last, in terms of the recovery. And it's all got to do with the concept of just conferences and exhibitions. It's about getting as many people into confined space and spend time over 2 to 3 days. And if you look at health protocols around COVID anywhere in the world, they all go against that, you know. And I think this is where now we need to relook at the space. We are seeing now virtual conferences starting to come through, where at the comfort of your office in your home, with the technology that is coming in, the exhibitions and conferences are starting to happen. We also are starting to see what we call hybrid events, right? Where essentially we are seeing that the locals of that country where the conference is at are probably attending physically up to the maximum of what is allowed. And then everyone else around the world dials in, as an example, and conferences in. So we are going through a process right now where hybrid conferencing and exhibitions are some things that are being experimented with. And ultimately, in the day, you know, it is in what the market wants that will ultimately adjust to. And I think only time will tell on that one, but it's something that we are watching quite closely. But for now, it is the hybrid events that are probably going to be ticking us over.
Mr. Ntshona, thank you very much for your time. And we hope that South African tourism will grow, you know, in future. We also believe that with the vaccine that is being rolled out, tourism will bounce back in the near future and be able to create jobs and wealth for the people of South Africa. Mzansi, that was the CEO of South African Tourism, Mr. Sisa Ntshona. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please do so by clicking that subscribe button at the bottom of the screen and hit that little bell so that each time a video is uploaded, you become the one who gets that notice to say a new video has been uploaded. Stay safe, Mzansi. Send us comments about what we talked about today and suggest also topics that you want us to discuss in terms of tourism in South Africa. Keep safe. We love you, Mzansi.